guys, so after last week's masturbation disaster, which was, for me it was a disaster, I don't know, maybe you liked it, I wanted to talk about something that I really like and really love, so I want to talk about the Mogudan Rei series, which, if you've never read, I would be honestly pretty surprised because it's been around for a really, really long time, and I think the first time I read it I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I think that was like the fourth or fifth one. So I know it's been out for a while, but it's also very distinctive. You would have a very hard time reading these doujinshis and mistaking them for a different doujinshi. In my opinion, they're very distinctive, just in the art style and the storytelling. Um, so yeah, Mogudan Rei series. Starting at the top, the first one is about Rei just banging a bunch of dudes at her school that are in sports teams. She just kind of is like, doesn't really seem like she wants to, but almost like she has to. Like, she'll just be like, every day I lose my shorts in gym class. Every class is the same. Someone will insert their penis into me. I don't really like it, but they say I am very good at it. Like, it's very... He writes her so ambivalent about the sex that is happening to her. Very occasionally, she will seem super psyched about it, and very occasionally, she will seem like she's not really into it. But most of the time, she just very blankly tells you what is happening to her. That's it. Like, she'll just be like, I was walking through the park today, and a homeless man called out to me. I ended up sucking his dick 2 times. Later that day, I went home and had sex with my landlord. And it won't have any emotion to it. It'll just be like, this is the thing I did, and you're like, all right, Rei. So, he writes her very emotionlessly, and that, like, even from the first issue, that's how he does it. Also, something notable about the first issue, her proportions are not absurd in the first issue. I actually find the art style to be very similar to the Evangelion manga, but basically with bigger boobs. And after the first one, his art style just kind of takes flight and becomes its own beautiful interpretation of Rei, its own special butterfly, and that is part of what makes him so hard to forget. The second issue of the Rei series, Rei is just, she's in her gym class, and she's like, oh, it's Takeshi's turn to fuck me today. They go to the nurse's office together, he fucks her. That's the entire issue. Oh, like, I don't know, like a nurse comes in and is like, hey, what are you two doing? And they're banging, and it's whatever. It doesn't whatever, it's boring. Second one's kind of boring. You read it because it's part of the series, I guess. I don't care about the second one. The third one is where, in my opinion, Mogudan starts to really develop his version of Rei, because in the first issue, it's kind of like, I feel like he's trying to stick to Rei. Like, he's trying to be like, yeah, this is a doujinshi about Rei Ayanami from Evangelion. By the third issue, it's like his own original character that happens to look like Rei Ayanami. And another thing that adds to that is, like, she doesn't really interact with other Evangelion characters. She just fucks random people, and you don't ever see, like, she doesn't fuck, like, I'm always like, why isn't she banging Gendo Akari? Like, I really want to see Rei fuck Gendo Akari, and I never see that, and I don't know why, because, like, if I had a clone of my 14-year-old wife just chillin', I would hit that. Like, what? Whatever. Okay, Mogudan doesn't draw her with the other Eva characters. So, that's another thing that makes her seem very, like, abstract from the Evangelion universe, and just kind of, like, her own special little thing. Yeah, the third one is where she starts fucking her school teachers, homeless people she runs into in the park, like her vice principal secretaries, old men on the train. Like, she goes from, like, oh yeah, I'm banging all of these students my own age, to, like, I am banging anything with a penis that looks at me for more than 45 seconds. And I mean, no complaints here. I actually really like the change, because, like, getting banged by a bunch of schoolboys is incredibly common, and I don't care about it. Whereas, like, oh, you're just banging these homeless people, that's pretty weird. Like, at least it's more interesting. But it's also part of what makes the Rei series really unique, because it's not just like, oh, she's some slut at school. She just goes around banging everyone all the time, everywhere. It's, like, ridiculous. So The fourth one is when he starts to introduce elements of NTR, which he does very... he doesn't really try that hard to make you feel bad, in my opinion. Like, I don't feel bad reading that one, and there's some NTR that I feel really bad reading, but he just kind of... he just, like, mentions it, and it's, like, a thing, but it doesn't... he doesn't ever try and, like, pull at your emotional cords. The fourth issue is about her fucking her boyfriend's dad, and it's just, like, she'll be like, oh, my boyfriend is at school studying and I'm at his house with my panties pulled down and someone eating me out, but that person is his father. And you're just like, okay, Ray, I expect this. And that's pretty much the whole fourth issue, is her just banging the dad, and some other people too. I feel like she bangs the homeless dude in that one too. She bangs the homeless dude a lot. He comes back in the Daikais and is like his own issue, and his name's like Mr. M or something. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, fourth issue, she is banging Takeshi's dad, or whatever his name is, dad, and then he comes back too sometimes. In the fifth issue, Ray starts to get chunky. I don't mind, like, she's not, like, she doesn't get fat, she just starts to get rolls, which, I mean, they're not rolls, she gets love handles, which is fine, because he has made her boobs and butt so big at this point that if he didn't put fat anywhere else on her body, she would look incredibly disproportionate, and I think he made the right decision to make her gain a little weight. He slims her down later, but the fifth issue, the cover, she's, like, in a bathing suit, she's got rolls, she's just, like, in a really dirty public restroom, like, Ray. But yeah, if just by me, like, talking about this, if you've never read them, and if you know Ava, you can kind of tell how far, just in 5 issues, she goes from originally just like, oh, I'm Ray Ayaname, I go to school and I bang some boys, to, like, I hang out in a bikini, I've gained 35 pounds, and I just hang out in dirty public restrooms waiting to fuck dudes. Like, there was a really big jump there, and I mean, he did it over the course of 5 issues, so it wasn't like he just totally took you from, like, point A to point B with nothing in between, but you can see the development of his version of Ray over the course of those original 5 series, and then after that, he has a bunch of other Daikais, and, like Sansani, he has, like, a couple other, like, weird, like, spin-offs that are all about this Ray set in the same universe that are just, like, kind of spin-offs, and the other ones that he does are not in color. The original 5 are all in color, and I usually don't care very much about color, but I like the way he colors these ones. 3, 4, and 5, I like the coloring in the best. The coloring in 2 is very, bright. It's very happy, and the coloring in 1 is okay. But yeah, the coloring in 3, 4, and 5 I really like, and I think it suits the moodiness of the series. But yeah, it's really something, if you haven't read, I feel like you should read, because I consider it to be sort of a classic, just because it is... you will never read anything else like it. Even the way that he does his art is very, like, that's Mogudan, you know. And then he'll do, instead of doing, like, panels, which, you know, most doujinshi, most manga, it is panels, he does an entire page, like a full spread of Ray banging someone, and then a little box of text on the side that's her talking about it. And that is, like, that, I've never read another doujinshi that did that, like, ever. That's his thing. Good for him. He made his own, like, he found a special niche in the hentai world, and he did a really good job of it. But yeah, those are the Ray Mogudan doujinshis, and I almost feel like I want to, like, break it up and talk about them in separate videos, because I have so much to say about the Mogudan series as a whole, but honestly, you can pretty much group... the first one is its own thing, the second one is its own thing, 3, 4, and 5 you can kind of group together, because that is when he starts to do his, like, that's when he starts to develop the Mogudan Rei, where she's just banging all these old ugly dudes, and, like, that's her thing. But the first 2 are a little bit different than that. The last 3 of the series stick very closely to that. The 5th one ends in her just kind of hanging out in dirty public restrooms and emailing people to be like, hey, come, or emailing or calling people to be like, hey, yeah, meet me here, yeah, I'll drink your semen, I'm a hentai girl. Literally, I'm a sexy hentai girl. I don't know if that was the actual translation or if that was, like, a translator error, but I'm a sexy hentai girl. Rei Ayanabe. So I definitely would give these a read if you haven't. I personally find them to be like absurdly jerkable. They're so great when you just don't want to think about what you're masturbating to, because if you want to read what they're saying or what she's saying on the side, I like reading that. I really need text, like when I can't read an untranslated doujinshi. I need to know what they're saying. So like I appreciate the text and I enjoy reading it, but you can totally read it without reading the text, because the plot is just like, what plot? It's just this girl banging these people. So it's a really good series. If you haven't read it, you should. And if you have read it, good for you. You know what's up. What a great series. Mogudan also has, if you've read his stuff and you want to read more, he wrote it was a doujinshi for something. I can't remember what it was a doujinshi of, but it's about a class president getting blackmailed into banging the gym teacher of her school, and like it's just like 40 pages of her being like, no, I don't want to oh no, now I can't live without your dick. But it's written in a very similar style. The art's very similar. So if you liked the Rei series and you haven't read anything else by Mogudan, that I think is his other best work, because he did an Asuka doujinshi that was like incredibly lackluster. It was so, I didn't even realize Mogudan wrote it. Like, it was so totally not something that I cared about. I was appalled when I found out Mogudan wrote it, because I usually love his stuff. And he also wrote these two maid ones that are about like a girl who's like a midnight maid, where she just like bangs people in a maid costume. And then the sequel to it is about her fucking her brother and her dad in a maid costume. And that's the other one he wrote, which I didn't care for as much. But yeah, the Rei series was really good, and the Underground is the name of the other doujinshi that he wrote that I quite liked. And I think Rei is actually in that one, like in the background of a page somewhere. But yeah, those would have to be the best ones that Mogudan's done, in my opinion. And I really want to talk about his other ones, his Daikais, but I'm going to wait for another video to do that, because I realize this is getting pretty long, and I have a lot more to say about Mogudan. So thank you for watching, and I hope if you haven't read the Mogudan series, you really check it out, because I think it's great. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you next week.